Good morning and welcome to Ireland AM. It's Saturday the 15th and we're halfway through October already.
Coming up this morning, we're going to be looking at this weekend's big sporting action, including last night's URC clash between Connacht and Leinster.
And we'll be joined by Fraser Holden, who went from architect to artist following a diagnosis of motor neuron disease and now found an unusual way of raising awareness for his condition.
It's definitely wrapping up weather out there, and in fashion we've the hottest trends in coats and jackets, and he's the first man to row from New York to Galway after 120 days at sea. Former Leinster and Connacht rugby star Damian Browne will be stopping by.
He wowed the judges week after week with these incredible bakes. Great British Bake Off winner Giuseppe Dell'Anno joins us, and he's giving us all the tea on life inside the tent.
Now let's see what the world is looking like as you wake up. Hannah Murphy is in the Virgin Media News Hub. Good morning, Hannah.
Thank you and good morning. Well, the final funeral for the victims of the Creasla tragedy will take place this morning. Robert Galway and his 5-year-old daughter Shauna will be laid to rest after a mass at 11 o'clock.
The village of Creasla will come to a standstill this morning once again. For the 5th day in a row, the community will line the streets as they prepare to say their final farewell to Robert and Shauna Galway, the 9th and 10th victim to be laid to rest. Robert and his daughter Shauna were in the petrol station in the village last Friday to buy a birthday cake for Shauna's mum when the explosion happened. It's believed when their bodies were recovered, Robert's arms were wrapped around his little girl. The days and weeks ahead will be difficult for the families and wider community here as they try and come to terms with their unimaginable grief and loss. Aisling Nicostala, Virgin Media News in Creasla, County Donegal.
In the UK, the new Chancellor has admitted mistakes were made in Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget. Jeremy Hunt has told Sky News the government is going to have to take tough decisions on spending and tax as a result. He was appointed to the role yesterday afternoon, taking over from Kwarteng, who lasted just 38 days, one of the shortest-serving Chancellors. An explosion at a coal mine in northern Turkey has left at least 28 people dead and many more injured. There were more than 100 people working in the shaft when the explosion hit yesterday, with 58 miners so far rescued alive. Emergency teams have worked through the night to free people, and ambulances were on standby outside. Early assessments indicated the fire was caused by flammable gases in the mine. In the US, police say a teenager was responsible for a shooting in North Carolina yesterday, which left 5 people dead. The suspect, a 15-year-old boy, is in critical condition in hospital following the shootings, which happened in Raleigh. A police officer was among those killed in the incident, the motive of which has not yet been determined.
5 individuals lost their lives, including an off-duty Raleigh Police Department officer. 2 others were injured, including a Raleigh police officer who has been treated and released from the hospital. The other injured victim is 59-year-old Marcel Gardner, who is still in critical condition. A 15-year-old white male suspect was taken into custody and is in critical condition.
Fuel supplies in France have been severely disrupted due to ongoing strikes. Total Energies Group refineries rejected a deal over a pay increase, leaving many gas stations closed as they wait for deliveries. Long lines of cars could be seen across France as motorists waited, sometimes for hours, to fill up. Almost a third of the country's gas stations are experiencing temporary shortages, with Paris and northern France most impacted. Iranian protesters are defying a crackdown from security forces and continuing to call for the downfall of the country's leaders. At least 200 people have reportedly been killed since the protests began almost a month ago, prompted by the death of Mahsa Amini. The 22-year-old woman was arrested by the morality police in Tehran in September and died in their facility. The demonstrations are seen as the most serious challenge to the Iranian authorities in decades. And 14 years after working together on In Bruges, actors Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson say their natural chemistry remained when they came together again for their latest dark comedy. They were at the Lighthouse Cinema in Dublin last night to premiere their new film, The Banshees of Inisherin. It saw support from other well-known Irish names like Bono and Brenda Fricker on the red carpet. Martin McDonagh wrote the film with Gleeson and Farrell in mind, and they were thrilled to get the trio back together again for a story about the fallout of 2 old friends.
I think the idea that it was a male friendship didn't really come into it so much as
we didn't think
the idea that the idea of, I think with Martin is he didn't want to complicate it with a sexual or romantic idea because it would get in the way of the value that people have for each other outside of that. So a platonic relationship was just it doesn't mean you don't get wounded by it.
It's mad. It's what people are taking from it, you know, this male relationship, which is lovely actually because it's just a nice topic of conversation, you know.
Now let's check on the weather you're waking up to this morning.
For car insurance, van insurance or home insurance, call the Quote Devil. Unless, of course, you've got money to burn.
This morning it'll be blustery with frequent heavy and potentially thundery showers, with hail mainly in the west this morning becoming widespread for the rest of the day. Temperatures will range from 7 to 11 degrees. This afternoon we'll see spot flooding, then becoming windy as fresh to strong and gusty southwest winds develop. Cold in the wind, temperatures will range from 11 to 12 degrees. And tonight we'll see winds early in the night with showers persisting for a time, bringing further heavy falls to some parts. Turning drier overnight as showers become isolated, winds easing light to moderate southwesterly overnight. Temperatures will range from 7 to 10 degrees.
For first-time drivers, young drivers, returning drivers, if you've had an open claim or have had too many penalty points.
The Quote Devil's always got one hell of a quote.
Now let's check in on your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. They lead with new proposals to ease refugee crisis. The paper reports that people living in direct provision centres who work full-time may be charged rent or a fee under proposals being considered by the government in an attempt to find space for Ukrainian refugees.
AIB hike to spark interest rate surge. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. It reports that AIB has set the ball rolling on what is expected to be a string of mortgage rate rises from Ireland's main banks.
The Examiner leads with Kinahan gang arrests may be abroad. The paper reports that leading members of the Kinahan gang crime organisation are more likely to be taken down in international policing authorities than face justice here in Dublin.
Moving on to the tabloids now, the Daily Mail leads with romance fraud gang launders €64 million in Ireland. It reports that a major Garda investigation has found that more than €64 million has been stolen by an African gang in romance fraud and email scams, which have been laundered through bank accounts here in Ireland.
The Mirror lead with Cuckoo. The paper reports that the head of the public body set up to protect tenants' rights has been slammed for stating that renters should pay more to protect their leases.
On the front page of The Sun, a giant of our screens, the paper reports that film and TV legend Robbie Coltrane died yesterday, aged 72, after a lifetime of bringing joy to millions. The gentle giant passed away in his native Scotland yesterday evening.
The Herald leads with Johnny Cash withdrawal. The reports that the narco bank laundering network believed to have been used by Johnny Cash Morrissey to clean Kinahan's drug money has had its accounts closed after a series of police raids.
And the Star opens with thank you. It reports that the grief-stricken village of Creeslough has thanked the public for its support, as the public have raised almost €1 million to help rebuild the community.
Wow. Something to look forward to a little bit later on. Later on, we're looking at the world-renowned phobia expert Kate Summerscale about her book on fears and phobias.
Like, I don't know if I love chatting about phobias. Why is, for instance, the number 4 scary to some people? Like, why can some people not be in the same room as a balloon? People are freaked out by balloons. Look, she's going to reveal all.
So this morning we're asking what really gives you the willies. I'm afraid of lots of stuff. Are you? I don't like butterflies, I don't like moths, I don't like daddy long laces, I don't like heights, I don't like lots of things.
Lots to get through when she gets on. You can get in touch and you can tell us for free on WhatsApp. The number is 089 611 111.
You can email us, of course, irelandam@virginmedia.ie.
Some people are afraid of a series of small holes. I must get the name
Oh,
of
that's a real
that's
thing.
a top one for Ireland. And of course, you can find us at Ireland MVMTV on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Yeah,
you know,
it's like honeycombs.
Oh yeah.
So that is actually, there was a study out recently enough, and it showed that like honeycomb were little, do you know, that kind of small holes close together.
So I knew we were going to be talking about phobias and fears, and Jodie, one of the producers, emailed me during the week and was like, oh, you know, what's your phobia, and we can talk about that. And I said, if you think for a second, I'm telling you, because I know you're going to pull up an image, we're going to spend 10 minutes talking about it, and I'm going to feel awful for the rest of the day.
Spiders?
No, spiders are fine. I can deal with spiders.
Bats.
No, it's not. It's nothing
Tupperware.
alive.
Tupperware. Imagine.
Some people are.
Shower curtains.
I can't wait to have this chat, because there is some of the most crazy things. Like, a friend of mine, Ray, is afraid of cotton wool.
That's Aidan Powers.
My friend Lisa's afraid of cotton wool as well. If you go like that with cotton wool, she freaks out completely. It's kind of like the chalk and the blackboard.
Or putting it in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like if it was to go in your mouth, or tin foil.
What are you afraid of?
Clowns. Like...
That's a common one.
So we had, I was on air on 98 FM and they had like a Nightmare Realm, which I think was hilarious, and I came into the building, so I barricaded myself into the studio because I knew there was a clown. But like, I read back on the text messages that I sent my boss. I was like, this is not okay. This is not funny. Like, I was full on.
Is it the clowns that look spooky, or is it like a normal kids' party clown?
It doesn't matter. It's all round. Like, I can't deal. Like, even the thought of it now, actually, I'm a bit like... Yeah. Full on that and the dentist, fully sedated.
Come on, we've all.
So I've told you what mine is.
We've all shared. This is the triangle of trust.
I have a phobia of vomit.
And you've got a baby.
I know, yeah, but for some reason with him it's okay.
Baby pig is different to actual adult.
Yeah, like you see now, I'm already starting to feel a little bit sickly talking about it. And you'll find, no, I'm not going to, but like, you'll find that every movie, every TV show, there's always a random scene of someone being sick for no good reason. And I said it to Deb when we first started seeing each other, and she was like, "You're being crazy." But every movie, every time we watch it, she'll turn to me and be like, "Oh yeah, there's the random scene of someone being sick."
My favourite phobia ever in the entire world is Dara, formerly of these shores. He is frequently a director here. He's afraid of Oompa Loompas. Like, deathly afraid of Oompa Loompas. If you go, Oompa Loompa, doobity, he'll take off, and he's a grown man. He'll take off. I remember once this is donkey's years, about 20 years ago, on Ireland M, and he was on the floor, floor managing, and they played it in the studio. Oh. He took off lifting. There's not a patch on Usain Bolt. It was the funniest thing
Honestly,
ever.
if a clown came in, I'd go to ground.
Yeah.
I'd be gone. Like, go to ground.
Well,
like,
you're in luck, because here we have...
Well, I promise I won't puke on you.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, sports up next, including a look back at Leinster's win over Connacht. See you in 3.
Very welcome back. It's an action-packed weekend of sport. To help us digest it all is Virgin Media Sports' Joe Caulfield. First, here's a pic of the back pages. Spoil sports. That's the headline on the back of the Irish Mirror. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp has condemned the huge influence of oil money in football, insisting that no one can compete with the likes of Manchester City. The Irish Daily Mail go with Blues grind out a derby win to maintain unbeaten run. That's after Leinster's tight win over Connacht last night in the URC. And finally, the Irish Independent also go with Leinster's win last night. They lead with ruthless Leinster shuts out Connacht. And Joe joins us this morning to have a little look at everything. Good morning, how are you?
I'm very well.
I suppose we have to start with Leinster and Connacht last night. It's a tale of two sides there, two very different outcomes in terms of what Connacht are not achieving and what Leinster are looking to achieve, I suppose.
Yeah, look, it was a wet and windy night in Galway. No better time to bring Leinster down. Like, for a game that only had one try in it, it was actually quite entertaining. Yeah. So Leinster get off, they score a try within the first 4 minutes, and you're thinking this is going to be a very, very long night for Connacht. But then Connacht battled their way back into it, and we'll say the second quarter of the game, they dominated possession, territory, they dominated the set piece, they got penalties off line out and scrum, they threatened the line, they got over the line, were held up, and they were held short. And the story of the game really was Connacht's inability to execute, to capitalise on the pressure that they were putting on Leinster, because Leinster were very un-Leinster-like in the amount of penalties they gave away. Like, it was a very wet night in Galway. There was a lot of knock-ons. You have to give credit to the referee, Frank Murphy, who let it play a lot. But for the amount of... for how competitive Connacht were, they didn't get a try, they didn't get a score, they didn't get even a losing bonus point, and they'll be kicking themselves for that, because they could have. Like, they put Leinster under sufficient pressure to get something out of that game.
And just that home advantage, like, you just saw it was like, I looked at this morning, it was just, they were just there, exactly as you said, there or thereabouts. And granted, the weather conditions definitely, like, if we look at last weekend Leinster's scoreline and we look at this weekend, I mean, they're poles apart, but it was just like Connacht did everything but...
They were missing that little bit of composure and that quality in front of the line, and actually was exemplified about half an hour in. They had advantage in front of the Leinster posts, and scrum half Riley, who he's a young player, he had Mac Hansen out wide and he tried to loop it over and he threw it out in the full. Last week against Munster, it goes back to Carty, he drives at the line, he draws the defence and he hits Mac Hansen, who gets over. And they were just missing that little bit of clinical finishing they needed last night. And it's a pity because they could have got at least a draw or a losing bonus point, as I say. But they're improving. They're like, they had a really tough fixture list at the start of the season. They went to South Africa. They're now playing Scarlets and Ospreys at home and away, respectively. They need to get 2 wins because then they face Munster and Thomond in 3 games' time.
Yeah.
So, look, there's green shoots. I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom for Connacht. Leinster were clinical and professional as always, and they were happy to get out of there with the win.
Yeah, that said, speaking of Munster, obviously we're looking at them playing Bulls. It's again, this season so far has just been a lot of unexpected. Munster being in there as well for that. What are you thinking?
So, look, I'm loath to criticise them too much because they've had a huge amount of turnover. Their forwards coach, Graham Rowntree, is now their head coach. Mike Prendergast has come in from Racing 92 and Leamy has come from Leinster. And what it seems like is that they're trying to completely overhaul the style of play that was in place for 6 years under Johan van Graan. And it seems that they don't know what they're trying to do, or they're not able to execute on the style of play yet. But where they're in trouble is that their easy games of the season are gone. They've played Cardiff, they've played Zebre. They got a win against Zebre, fair enough, but they're not firing. They're not in the position where you'd say they take this easy start of the season and they bed in the style of play that they want to go forward with. They've had such a stuttering start, it's going to be difficult for them to make it up. They have the Bulls in Thomond Park today, and they need to come out with the very minimum of the intensity that you expect from Munster. Because they're lacking that this season too.
I think that's exactly it, Joe. It's the expectation of Munster. It just feels like, I understand that there's all those other moving parts, which is just the nature of sport. Things change. But exactly as you said, it is the expectation of Munster that just seems right at this present moment is just not being met.
Yeah, and like I can understand that there might be a kind of a paralysis within the team because they're trying to find this new style of play. But the minimum DNA that you expect from Munster is that they come out with intensity, that they're fighting for every ball. And I think if they come out and play that way against the Bulls, the fans will get them behind them at Thomond Park, and they'll forgive them dropping balls or confusion in the back line around plays and stuff like that. But if they're not bringing that fight, there'll be empty seats in Thomond.
We could talk about Ulster, but you know what, we'll move on because we've a bit of football as well today in terms of Tottenham and Everton. So, do you know what? I think this is shaping up to be a beaut.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Spurs played the beautiful style of play they can play against Frankfurt during the week. And if they bring that style of play today, I think Everton are in for a long day at the office. However, if Everton push hard and they get an early goal, like the way you're going to beat Spurs or get a result against Spurs is to put them under pressure, to get them on the back foot, and then they seem to doubt themselves and they misfire a little bit. Everton are doing well. They're going for a second win. Okay, they beat Southampton last week, but they're 12th in their table. They're not under huge pressure. They're finding their form under Frank Lampard. If they can go to Tottenham and they can get an early goal and they can bring the game to Spurs, then we can see how they operate under pressure and whether they're able to come out with a performance. Because when they play well like they did during the week, they're beautiful to watch.
I think that's Frank. There's just something about it. I don't know whether it's just Frank, but there's something about it. I think there's a different energy around Everton and just the way he conducts himself, almost like him or loathe him. But I think it's rubbing off, and I know they're mid-table, but I think that energy coming into the likes of Everton, it's a game changer for those mid-table teams. Do you know that kind of way of pushing up?
Yeah, and like when he came in last season, I suppose there was a little bit of uncertainty around him, what impact he's had. But I'd agree with you that now the fans are behind him.
Yes.
The players seem to have bought into his style of play, and they seem to be playing with conviction about what they need to be doing. Actually, different to Munster in that they know their style of play. I know it's a different sport.
No, I get you, 100%. But psychology of it.
Yeah, exactly. Once you have singularity of focus around what you're trying to do, then it's much easier to implement that. And I think if they can go there with a game plan, right, let's get an early goal, let's put Spurs in the back foot and put them under pressure, then they can get a result. But I think that if Spurs play as well as they can, Everton have a chance.
This is true, but again, I just think the Frank went in and knowing that den that is playing against Tottenham against Spurs. Before you go, I have to talk to you about Klopp because obviously it's across all of the back pages. He's saying nobody can compete with City. There's just too much oil money in football. It's just not possible. Like, do you know what? There's a bang of this that it's like split Dublin in two, break them up. Do you know that kind of way? But is that not, like, I get it that there's so much money in it. But Joe, is that not the nature of football? Is that the ebb and flow of these teams that come in? Like Manchester United, you know, they ran the gauntlet for so long. They were top of the table, as we saw with Liverpool, you know, and now at the moment it's City. Is it a little bit toys out of the pram? Or?
Yeah, look, he's not wrong in what he's saying, but why is he saying it now?
Yeah.
If they were playing PSG this weekend or this week in the Champions League, would he be bringing this issue up? I don't think so. Was he saying this about City last year when they had the same amount of financial backing? No, he wasn't. Why is he saying it now? Because they're 16 points behind him in the table, I think. And I think he's deflecting from their own deficiencies and inadequacies. He's not wrong in that the amount of money that City have enabled them to add to their already excellent squad someone like Haaland, who is a complete game changer.
Yeah.
But Haaland could have gone anywhere, and he chose City because they play the best football. And they're incredible to watch. And Arsenal are going to run them very, very close. I think it's the fact that Liverpool aren't in contention for the Premier League this year.
Like the wages, if you look at the wages, like we look at Haaland, it's 900 grand a week. Like if you go back and look at Mo Salah, it was like, what, we're talking about 300 grand. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's a searing amount of difference in money of what they're paying. And then you have someone like Haaland, we were talking about it last week, it's like, he hasn't even peaked.
No.
They had the money to buy him in, but also, you know, if Liverpool had the money to buy him in, they buy him in, right? And then he'd be yours. So he's like a bit over the fence, giving it the like, what have you got over there and why do you have all the money to buy all the sweets?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, they spent a lot of money on Darwin Núñez this summer.
Yeah.
Like he's deflecting from that point.
Cashed in your chips, Klopp.
100%. And if they were like, if there was 3 points between them, I don't think he'd be referencing this. I think that he's trying to take the attention off his team before one of the biggest games of their season. Because if they lose at Anfield to Man City, it could be game over for them.
Speaking of which, I'll ask you to call tomorrow.
City, Liverpool?
Yeah.
Oh, City 4-1, I'd say.
Oh, Joe.
I don't even, like, if it wasn't Liverpool at home, with the record they've had in the league so far, it's not a contest. Well, look, let's hope it is a contest, but I don't see them beating City.
Right there, thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it. After the break, we're talking to the architect who became exhibit artist after being diagnosed with motor neuron disease. We're back just after this break.
Welcome back. And there are more than 420 people living with motor neuron disease in Ireland today, including Fraser Holden, an architect who, following his diagnosis, became an influential artist and is now at the centre of a new art exhibition starting next week.
We're joined now by Fraser, along with his wife Orlagh, to tell us more about the disease and his personal journey. Thank you both so much for joining us on the show today. It's so lovely to have you here. I suppose when I think of motor neuron disease, I think it first really came to attention for me, the Ice Bucket Challenge. Everyone in the world literally was fundraising for MND, and that raised huge awareness for it. But Fraser, if I can ask you about your diagnosis, when did you suspect there was something more sinister wrong than the normal aches and pains?
Yeah, I think before COVID, I'd noticed a bit of weakness in my left arm, and I thought nothing of it. I thought it was just a gym injury. But sort of through COVID, it was fine, and then after COVID, sort of probably December, sort of just gone, I noticed a bit more weakness in the arm. And then in January, I got a foot drop in my left foot. And I thought maybe it's a pinched nerve. Went and saw a back specialist. He said no, he couldn't see anything, and went to a neurologist. And then in May, we were diagnosed with motor neuron after
24th.
24th.
I'm still counting weeks. We're not even in the months. Or the
and can you remember, Fraser, how MND was explained to you as when you got the diagnosis? How was it described?
I sort of knew a bit about it from the Ice Bucket Challenge. We'd done it ourselves in Australia at the time, and I knew a bit about it. I didn't know the ins and outs, but I knew it was terminal, and I knew there's no cure. So once we got the diagnosis, yes, it was a bit of a shock. But yeah, I knew what everyone else knew. I know more now from researching it, but yeah, it was a shock at the time, I have to say.
In layman's terms, the best way to explain, this is the way we explain it to our 7-year-old, is that the messages in the brain don't write through to the nerves to touch the fingers and the toes. And that's why Daddy can't use his hands, and that's why Daddy can't use his feet. And that's how she explains it to people now.
You were measuring the diagnosis in weeks rather than months. I mean, it's been so recent, only a matter of months, and it's so raw. And to be doing what you're doing is absolutely amazing. You've always been artistic, I believe.
Yes.
When did you actually start painting properly?
Look, I've been painting my whole life since I was a kid, and obviously I did a fair bit back home in Australia, but being an architect, I've always been creative.
You do need that side of things, of course, in your line of work.
It's sort of a hobby I did, but more recently, obviously, it's amazing with the diagnosis. My creativity has gone through the roof. It's amazing.
It's interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know if it's a side effect, but a silver lining.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's sort of always been there, but just now...
It's been unleashed.
It's been unleashed, yeah, let's say.
So do you think then maybe as a creative and having that sort of ability to express yourself through music, it's not just art, you express yourself a number of ways. When you were faced with your own mortality, do you think that's what kind of ignited that kind of, and which obviously led to the piece that we're looking at in the studio, the TikTok piece?
Yeah, 100%. I really do believe that your mind opens up when you do face your mortality, absolutely. And, you know, I've done a number of pieces for the exhibition, but this one is probably the most powerful one I did. And these are all based on what I'm experiencing. So, yeah, it's been definitely an awakening, you could say.
Could you explain that painting to us?
Yeah,
actually?
so
it's quite stark in colour, but
the
texture is interesting.
So the exhibition, we created a thing called the black and white movement, because my life now is very black and white. So all the pieces are black and white, but that particular piece it's called Commodity, and it's a series of watches on the canvas. And I believe time is our greatest commodity, whether you're ill or not. And the watches are painted up black to cover the faces. So it stops you look at your watch and think about the future or the past, but makes you concentrate on the moment. And you do, I guess, when you're terminal, it's about living in the moment and not thinking about what's coming or what's been. So that piece sort of represents that.
It's an incredibly powerful piece, and this, along with the other pieces, are actually up for grabs.
Yeah, indeed, yes.
So this piece is a silent auction that anyone can bid for, and they don't have to go to the exhibition, and all the money is raised for the Irish Motor Neuron Association. So, yeah.
But that's not the only one, obviously.
No, we've had, this is the most ugliest disease, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's so horrible. But out of it all, 90% of it is disgusting, but 10% is beautiful. And the beautiful piece is the kindness of people. So Fraser reached out to so many artists in the first week of diagnosis, and we've had about over 40 contributions.
Wow.
And that's established artists, that's people who have a hobby. Fraser's own carer, she's a keen photographer, she's amazing. She's donated a piece, and then there's really...
Well, your daughter as well, she's also contributing.
And her school got involved.
That's so cute.
Her school, they've got involved, and there's a piece from representing the school. So it's amazing. It really does touch your heart.
How is your daughter coping with all of this? Because it's really hard to explain something like this to a little child, I suppose, Fraser.
Yeah, it is. It's, look, we're not going to lie to her, and we've told her what she needs to know to this point. We have her in play therapy, which helps. But it's amazing children, how resilient they are. It just blows my mind. And she's so helpful, helping me every day with various things. But yeah, it stuns me how resilient she is. But look, she's been great. We're just telling her, as it progresses, we tell her a bit more. You can't tell her the end result now. She's too young, I wouldn't take it in. So, yeah, but...
I think her resilience must come from you, Per, because we spoke at the Green Room beforehand, and your frank approach towards what you're facing, it's admirable, it really is. Orlagh, you were saying that within minutes of the diagnosis, Fraser was already saying, right, how can we turn this into something positive?
And I'm like, are you having a laugh? We're just got this diagnosis. And Fraser's like, no, Orlagh, I don't want to be miserable. I really don't. And we're very aware that whatever time we have as a family with Una, that's the memories she's going to have. So she's going to remember the exhibition. The other day she did another piece. So that's what she's going to remember about M&D and the fundraising and the good, that 10%. And hopefully that will, over time, that 10% will be 20%, etc., etc. So
that 10% is so amazing, because when you think about it, a lot of people would, I mean, especially with the world we've lived in for the last number of years, that they're thinking would get very catastrophic with something like this, and to actually spin it into a positive, good thing, it shows what you spoke. Your daughter has amazing resilience. You have amazing resilience to even get something like this out of what was a devastating diagnosis.
Yeah, look, it's as I said in the green room earlier, I had two choices. I could crawl in a hole and give up, or do something positive. And maybe it's the Australian in me, but...
It's the Irish, I think. You've been here long enough.
I don't go with the Australian as well. I know quite a few of them.
But we're just dogged, I suppose, and don't give up. And I'm just determined to not let this define me. You know, I am still me, but I'm going to do something positive and show others that it's not the end of the world. Like.
And of course, we have the tickets, we have the exhibition. There's a GoFundMe as well. Tell us the details about that.
Yeah, we have a GoFundMe. It's actually on my Instagram, and Fraser created this Instagram page. It's all about the black and white movement. It's black _white movement. But we're kind of doing stories of the things that go on, the challenges Fraser faces and the artwork.
Yeah.
So it's on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Listen, that's absolutely lovely. And I have to say your work is beautiful, very unusual, some of the nicest I've ever seen. And it's a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thanks a million. Thank you.
And of course, you can find more information about motor neuron disease at Irish Motor Neuron Disease Association.ie. And if you'd like to support Fraser's journey, you can find his details on the page Fraser Holden Battle MND at GoFundMe.com.
We have more Ireland AM just after this quick break. See you in 3.
You're very welcome back to Ireland AM. In the words of Game of Thrones, winter is coming, so it's time to turn our attention to wrapping up for the weather.
Stylist Emily O'Donnell joins us, and today we're focusing on winter coats. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning, ladies.
How are you?
We sure are. Coats, I suppose, are a wardrobe staple, and they're also something traditionally that Irish people always bought every winter. But with the energy costs rising, we might be wearing our coats inside this year as well as outside. So I am showcasing the hottest coat trends from 3 of Ireland's top retailers here today. And just to note as well that everything I'm showcasing can be bought online, but you can also do phone orders, because I know a lot of people like to get a little bit of extra styling advice. So we have the return of the Mac here today, pardon the pun, on Natalia. This whole look top to toe is from elme.ie, and Elme is a gorgeous boutique based in Dundalk. So what I love about this is, I suppose, the trench coat. It's iconic. Burberry reinvented every season. What we've seen a lot of the international brands do this year is the vinyl trench. This is cool, it's edgy, it's sexy, but it's also very wearable. It's the type of thing as well. A lot of people keep their coats on at events these days, and it's nice as well because it gives a little bit of a reflection being vinyl, but it's super wearable. And Natalia has actually been in this for the last 2 hours. You're not going to sweat in it. It's very comfortable, and I think the styling as well with this is important. We've kept a lot of the rest of the look quite neutral. The lovely beret makes it very friendly. It's a little bit of a nod to Emily in Paris. And then underneath the trench coat, I've put a gorgeous knitted dress from Irish brand Peruzzi. They are stocked in Elme.
Jumper dress.
Isn't it gorgeous? So it's very comfortable. It's got pockets. It's a beautiful fabric and styled with the necklace. I know lots of people are, I suppose, considering maybe outfits they might wear coming up to Christmas, but these are the type of pieces you'll have in the wardrobe and wear again. And I suppose I kept the military vibe coming through a little bit with the boots, a good chunky boot like we're seeing at Balenciaga. I think it's a gorgeous look. And just to note as well that Laura in elme.ie actually has a room in the shop. So if people don't want to be around other people, you can go into the styling room and you can give her a ring, and she will give you lots of advice. A VIP room, and who doesn't want that? So a little bit of something extra is always good. So Hannah is opening us up next in this gorgeous shawl coat from Lipstick. What I love about this is it's not too tailored or structured, so you can actually wear this as loose or tight as you want. This is from lipstick.ie, and of course they've branches nationwide, but what I love about this coat is the price point. This is $59.99, and this comes in 10 other colours. I'm talking black, white, beige, magenta, blue, green, yellow, you name it, they have got it. I predict a riot for this. So run, don't walk if you want it, because not only are you getting the coat, you're also getting the Gucci-inspired belt. Now, I love designer pieces, but I love sourcing, I suppose, a tribute at a really good price, like this Marc Jacobs-inspired bag. I know someone has put their eye on this in the studio, and I don't blame them, because I'm a bit of a magpie, what can I say? A certain department store has this bag for a lot more at the moment, and I think it's lovely to be able to pick up something. But the great thing about this coat is you're dressed in it. You could almost actually wear it as a dress with the belt and something simple underneath. I've styled it with this gorgeous polo neck dress. It's got long sleeves. It's got a gorgeous sort of fleece fabric, and it's just stunning. Louise, the head buyer in Lipstick, buys really well, like these gorgeous boots, and she's actually in the Nook Grove store at the moment. So if you want to give her a ring, get any styling advice, or indeed you can shop online at lipstick.ie. But I love the boots. They're just a really good staple for the wardrobe, and I have to say, if you're looking for an outfit maybe for a wedding, an occasion, a graduation, anything, the price points here are really keen. So if you are somebody who wants to get in on the coat trend but at a budget, move fast. I just think Hannah looks absolutely stunning in that colour, and it's really unusual.
The belt is fabulous on it as well. It just pulls it all together, kind of stitches.
And
so
I'd wear that now with other outfits too. Just, you know, so everyone thinks I'm wearing Gucci all the time, Suzanne. So Ursula is up next, and Ursula is in newmood.ie. Newmood, of course, are based in Wexford, and they started during the pandemic, but I have to say they are now an award-winning business because they won Best Boutique recently. So fair play to Patsy and Michelle, they are killing it. This outfit, I suppose, we are centering around the puffer jacket, because that is a wardrobe staple for people. And people often think they can buy a puffer jacket anywhere, and that's not really the case. This one is particularly special because it's really well insulated. It's waterproof, it conducts heat really well, but it's super lightweight. People often find with puffers, they feel like they're adding a lot of bulk maybe to their silhouette, or they're adding a lot of weight even just to their body by wearing something really bulky. So this is super lightweight. You're going to have it in the wardrobe for years. It feels really good. It looks a little bit more luxe and expensive than your average puff. It looks very like maybe the Montclair or some of the ones we're seeing retailing at thousands of euros. And people actually go to a lot of outdoor events at this time of year. They've got, I suppose, Halloween things with the kids. They've got the school run, and I just think it's just a gorgeous look. The tones of the blue here. We are looking now at the Robel tummy tuck trousers, which are a special from newmood.ie. Robel are one of the brands they stock and started with these great little shoe boots from Lipstick. These are always a bestseller every season. But what I love about newmood.ie is they do casual really well, and they do dressy really well. It's kind of like a mini department store in Wexford. We're going to look at the dressy pieces later, but this gorgeous top is just a really nice way. You can do dressy and you can still be casual and comfortable, and I think that's really, really important. And just to say that Patsy and Michelle are in New Mood waiting to take your calls. Louise is in Lipstick in Nook Grove, and Laura is in Elmay in Dundalk.
Thank you so much, Emily. Now, with 3 more great looks later on. Still to come, your phobias and fears explained by an expert.
Plus, we'll meet an Irishman who completed historic row across the Atlantic after nearly 4 months at sea. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Virgin Media Towers. You're watching Ireland AM on this Saturday morning, October the 15th.
Still to come, we meet the extreme adventurer who's climbed Mount Everest and recently made history by rowing across the Atlantic. Damian Browne is on the couch.
And are you scared of the number 4? Well, you're not alone. We'll be looking at some of the strangest phobias afflicting people today and learning about even stranger histories behind them.
I've heard of being afraid of the number 13. I've never heard of being afraid of the number 4.
I don't know, that's an odd one, all right. You might remember him as the baker who received the coveted Paul Hollywood handshake for his focaccia. Well, Great British Bake Off's winner Giuseppe Dell'Anno will be here.
And we're joined in the kitchen by the one and only Mean Dean, the cooking machine. See what I did there? What's on the menu, chef?
Today we're doing something a little bit different, but very good for the kids. We're going to make a beef and spinach cannelloni. It's a good way to get spinach into the food without the kids even knowing it. It's like a baked lasagna, the little pasta shell tubes that we fill with a filling of beef and spinach with some cream cheese.
Did you make the pasta yourself?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, Dean.
No, not quite. It has to be a hard pasta, so it can't be a freshly made pasta.
And so spinach, I suppose it is a good way of getting veggies in.
Absolutely. It's hidden away and it looks like parsley anyway. They wouldn't even know.
Now let's check in on your morning papers, starting with the Irish Times. They lead with new proposals to ease refugee crisis. The paper reports that people living in direct provision centres who work full-time may be charged rent or a fee under a proposal being considered by the government in an attempt to find space for Ukrainian refugees.
AIB hike to spark interest rate surge. That's the front page of the Irish Independent. It reports that AIB has set the ball rolling on what is expected to be a string of mortgage rate rises from Ireland's main banks.
The Examiner leads with Kinahan gang arrests may be abroad. The paper reports that leading members of the Kinahan crime organisation are more likely to be taken down by international policing authorities than face justice here in Dublin.
Moving on to the tabloids now, the Daily Mail leads with romance fraud gang launders €64 million in Ireland. They report that a major Garda investigation has found that more than €64 million has been stolen by an African gang in romance fraud and email scams, which have been laundered through bank accounts in Ireland.
The Mirror lead with Cuckoo. The paper reports that the head of the public body set up to protect tenants' rights has been slammed for stating that renters should pay more to protect their leases.
On the front page of The Sun, a giant of our screens, the paper reports that film and TV legend Robbie Coltrane died yesterday, aged 72, after a lifetime of bringing joy to millions. The gentle giant passed away in his native Scotland yesterday evening.
The Herald leads with Johnny Cash withdrawal. The reports that the narco bank laundering money network believed to have been used by Johnny Cash Morrissey to clean Kinahan drug money has had its accounts closed after a series of police raids.
And the Star opens with thank you. It reports that the grief-stricken village of Creeslough has thanked the public for their support, as the public have raised almost €1 million to help rebuild the community.
It's the €1 million raised. It's kind of nice to give back to such a small community. And just another one of the papers touched on Robbie Coltrane dying the other day.
Yesterday,
that man is literally and figuratively a giant of cinema. He's been on our screens for as long as I can remember. I remember growing up, my dad would have watched Cracker, so it would have been on in the background. I would have been, aware of him from that. And then for me, when I first sort of saw him was in GoldenEye as the Russian spy. But then, of course, for a whole generation of kids, from Harry Potter. This is, it's a legend. What's your Coltrane memory?
Oh, it has to be Hagrid and Harry Potter. And when he got the dinosaur egg.
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of the... Norbert.
I was going to say Norbert,
Norbert and hatched, and it was so cute. He had to give away Norbert. It was such a cute character, but he's a fantastic actor as well. I mean,
this is it, incredible. Apparently, when J.K. Rowling was writing the part, she kind of earmarked in her head him as being the perfect person to play this character. And when he was first offered the role, he was a bit reluctant, but he said his kids were the ones who urged him to do it. And he said now he's so thankful that he did that because there was a reunion of the Harry Potters, and he said that, look, and my kids and their grandkids are going to be watching these movies for the next 50 years or more. He said, so Hagrid will be around, and it's a real poignant moment where he turned to the camera and he said, I won't be, but Hagrid will be.
Did you watch the reunion? It was because he didn't look very well. Did you? Obviously, because you're a Harry Potter fan.
I didn't actually.
Did you
watch it?
Oh, it's so good because we're a big Harry Potter house, and my daughter is obsessed. And yesterday, I sent Joey a costume saying she wants all of us to dress up as Harry Potter. So I'm Mrs. McGonagall. Hannah is going to be Hermione. Poor old Sadie the baby is going to be the Dodo or whatever, the little kind of Dobby. Yeah. And I sent Joey the message going, will you be Hagrid? And then obviously the news came through. But in the reunion, it is that gorgeous moment. And it was something really, even at that time, he was still alive. There was something really sad about it. He was like, sadly, I won't be here, but Hagrid lives on forever. And he is one of those, because he's from a book, he talked about reading the books with his kids. And then he was alive in their bedroom. Like Hagrid was there and will be forever. He's such an icon, such a warm, gorgeous man.
Yeah, I think that character as well, the fact that in terms of the Harry Potter world, I think he's meant to be 8'6". You know, he's meant to be this giant, and in real life he's about 6'1", and he even joked himself that he's 6'1" up and left and right. But he is, the character was so lovely because there was that kind of warm side to Hagrid. I think that's what endeared an awful lot of people to him.
Every kid loves Hagrid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of the favourites. And I remember Dumbledore, Richard Harris also, he initially turned down the role as well. But his grandkids said they'd never talk to him again unless he did it. So there you go. Who's not going to want to be in Harry Potter? Yeah. Anyway.
So up next we have Damian Browne. He's the first person to ever to row from New York to Galway after 112 days out on the ocean. We're going to meet him after this quick break. Welcome back. Now, our next guest made history last week as the first person to ever complete the incredible rowing voyage from New York to Galway.
The former Connacht and Leinster player took off from Manhattan on June 14th, and after 112 days of near solitary existence among ferocious waves with only the odd passing whale for company, he arrived on the rocks at Furbo Beach just south of Galway.
Extreme adventurer Damian Browne, you are very welcome back to Ireland AM. How are you? You look much better than you did when you first landed in, can I just say? It's amazing what a little beard trim and a haircut will do.
Well, I feel much better as well, you know. I'm not crawling across rocks and, you know, seeing flashlights shimmering in the distance as the two guards came down to get me on the rocks. And yeah, very, very happy to get rid of that probably 130 odd days of growth at that point.
Yeah. So that's the end of the journey. Let's start at the very start. Why? What would convince you to take on this mammoth task that, by all accounts, I'm sure when you first pitched it to your partner and everybody in your life, they all thought you were crazy?
I was actually wondering the same. I'd say you should be single at this stage for gallivanting off doing all these mad adventures.
Well, can I just say, I mean, the sacrifice that she put in is just incredible. And I was asked the question, we were filming a documentary for the expedition and the project generally, and the director asked me the other day, he said, how would you cope if you were given your Elodie, your little girl, for 112 days? And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure how I'd cope, you know? So that kind of put it all in perspective for me. But the why comes back from very deep places, you know. So I was lucky enough to be a professional rugby player for 15 years, and that kind of taught me the power and the empowerment that comes through being able to push your body and mind to and past your limits. So you could say maybe a bit of institutionalization around that. And then I've always had this kind of fascination and curiosity with the world. So, you know, even while I was playing rugby, any chance I got, any holiday or break from rugby, I was at the airport traveling someplace kind of more, you know, the more exotic corners of the world, you know. So, you know, those two added together when I was retiring, or well before actually I was retiring, I just knew I was this was the perfect fit for me to kind of go into extreme adventures. So I got that outlet to push myself, to explore, because I get a lot of growth from that. And then obviously I get to see corners of the world that I'm very privileged and honoured to see.
Now, you've obviously done this rowing feat. You have done Everest, I believe, and Marathon des Sables. I know someone who did that and the soles of their feet fell off. Wow. Just tell our viewers what it's like.
Well, the Marathon des Sables is, it's known as the world's toughest foot race. It's 6 marathons over 6 days in the Sahara Desert, self-supported.
So 6 marathons, 6 days in the Sahara. What kind of heat are we talking about here?
My year, 2016, we had like 46, 45 degrees. Celsius, yeah.
OK, so how did you find that trip compared to the latest one?
Oh, well, this sounds a bit weird, because what I want to say is much easier. Like, there's nothing as hard as rowing an ocean. It's just the most relentlessly difficult. The psychology around it, the lack of comfort, everything's uncomfortable, and the lack of choice. Yeah. You know, once you're out in the middle of the Atlantic, like, you're totally unsupported. Whereas the Marathon des Sables, you have this kind of framework of support around you, and it's only 6 days, right? So, you can tap out at any stage and you're back into civilization very quickly, whereas, you know, on the ocean, that's not the case.
Well, of course, with the marathon, for every step you take forward, you're then always at that point. That's not the case when you're rowing the ocean. You could, anytime you took a break from rowing, because you were the only one out there doing it, you sometimes are moving backwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you get your head around that?
It's tough. Like I can't explain how hard that was. That was undoubtedly the hardest part of this expedition. Trying to deal with the fact that the anticipation of knowing, like, I have to rest at some point. So the minute I drop these oars, I'm going backwards today. And there was points where, at one stage, I remember this day distinctly that I rowed for 2 hours, and I made only 0.6 of a mile. So that's the difficulty of the conditions I was rowing into. It was so hard. Dropped the oars, and 15 minutes later, that 0.6 was gone. And by the time I got back on the oars, which was probably about 45 minutes, probably kind of eating stuff and prepared it, eating it, I had lost 1.5 miles. So, yeah, it's crushing. It's absolutely crushing.
That level of solitude as well must be kind of soul-destroying, but you didn't start out on your own. You had a companion. Tell us about that.
Yeah, a good friend, Gussie Farrell. This was always a two-man gig. Like, it was never a case of, I didn't want it. I rowed the ocean the other direction, the Atlantic, in 2018. So I'd had my solo expedition, and I wasn't drawn to that again. I didn't want it. So we did a two-man thing this time, and he has his own story, incredible story actually, where he had a spinal cord injury. He went into the National Rehabilitation Hospital here in Dún Laoghaire on the flat of his back, no feeling below his belly button, and walked out 16 weeks later. He did a fundraiser for the NRH then, where he walked across the country from where the accident happened in his yard in Athenry to the hospital, and I joined him on some of that, and I just saw something in him that I thought he'd be a great fit for me on the ocean. But unfortunately, the surgery, the extreme of it, he was just a bit compromised, and he didn't have the capacities to deal with what the Atlantic was going to throw them. Because you have to imagine, like, this is possibly the hardest challenge on the planet, you know. So,
and what's your safety net? I mean, you're out there in the middle of the Atlantic. There's times I can't get signal on the other side of the city.
Yeah.
So how do you tell people every day you're okay? How do you check in? How does that side of the communication work?
That's really, as you can imagine, that's a part of the expedition where you have backups, because it's so important, right? So we had a GPS on board, we had a VHF radio for communicating with the ships around us to let them know that, like, there was this little 6-meter boat in their vicinity, because we're passing these tankers that are 300 meters long, like, you know, and they can't see you, you know, so you have to notify them. And then we had a sat phone for talking to, firstly, I had a weather router, or we had a weather router, somebody who would give us a 5-day weather forecast to kind of point us in the right direction. A land support was the same person, and then family, friends, well, more family, you know. And then I had a thing called a broadband satellite uplink, where I was able to kind of share the journey through my podcast and through social media, and that's kind of what created the groundswell of interest and following around it all.
Was there at any point that it almost became too much for you?
Yeah, there was times with the second half of the race where, so the crossing was 112 days. The first half took me 44. The second half took me 68 days.
Why?
And that was just because I just kept getting I got no luck with the weather, no favourable weather. I just kept getting these headwinds. So I could row into them to a certain extent, but the minute I dropped the oars again, I was going backwards. And there was times, like, I hit despair during that, particularly around between 500 nautical miles to Ireland and 400. So that 100 nautical miles took me 13 days.
Oh, no.
And it was just, the way I describe it to people, it was like rowing purgatory. I felt I was damned to row for the rest of my life. That was genuinely the feeling I had.
The old man in the sea kind of vibe going on there.
Yeah, I was like, I can't get any closer to Ireland.
Yeah, but how did you talk yourself around that? Is it your training as a professional rugby player? Did you draw on something you didn't know you hitherto had?
A number of different things. So I'm very interested in, and another reason why I do these things is in the power of the mind. So there was a few things I drew on, but mostly it was kind of redirecting to what was within my control and what would get me to Ireland, and that was rowing. So it was just having, like, almost mantras or mental redirects, sentences, I'd say to myself, that would help me concentrate on what gets me to Ireland, which is rowing. So I had 3 of them, and that was, am I doing quality work? So basically it was all about concentrating on the act of rowing. Is my effort honest, and am I concentrating on what makes me a better rower? So the details of the actions, and those kind of redirects were able to bring me into that one thing that would get me to Ireland. Right?
Yeah. So that's psychologically. Physically, what did this do to your body?
Plenty of overuse injuries, particularly my hands. Now that's pretty cosmetic, what you can see, but underneath that is a lot of stiffness. So if you think my hands are kind of clamped like that on the oars, and they have to be kind of white knuckle clamped for about 11 hours a day, 12 hours a day. So everything gets short, all the ligaments and tendons. So like this, it's quite hard for me to do that right now. Never mind make a full fist, because they're just so stuck in place. Since I got off the boat, the bottoms of my feet are ultra sensitive, because not used to weight bearing for
neuropathy there,
months.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and then my undercarriage.
The pressure sores, I saw pictures on some of the times. Oh my good God.
Right. Yeah,
that ain't good.
Sea sores and pressure sores. It's just your skin is constantly wet and
salty.
The salt crystals dry, and they become like almost like a fiberglass.
Yeah, you're not selling this. I don't think anybody's going to be taking this title off you. You will, without question, be the only man.
Are you absolutely bonkers? Like, why do you do this to yourself? Please tell me you're going to give yourself a bit of a break for a while.
Big break now, yeah. I have nothing planned. It's just a case of family. Yeah, exactly. You know, and the kind of maybe the business side of being an extreme adventurer, which is something I kind of neglect, because I get so much from the experiences. You know?
What was it like seeing your little daughter again after such a long time? Did she know you?
She did know me, yeah.
Even with the beard?
I couldn't believe it. We did a thing where Roselle, my partner, would send me little, through that broadband satellite, I was able to get little 3, 4, 5 second clips of her, and they were able to get them of me, you know. So, and I did a few things like voice notes and singing and little videos before I left. So we were able to kind of create that connection. Yeah.
Look at her.
I'd say, but of course you kind of arrived in dramatic style as well, because you had a bit of a timpish at the very end.
I did, yeah. So I was getting blown up the coast of Ireland, and that was great because I had these southerly winds and they were really strong. But the time I had to turn kind of east and into Galway Bay, of course they were on my side, and they just kept blowing me towards. I just didn't have the power as one person to work against them, you know. So they kept blowing me towards that kind of the Galway coast.
The rocks,
and eventually the rocks, yeah. Even though I felt in control, it was pitch black, there was no moon, and I had these big waves coming on my side, and I just lost control at one point because there was 2 rocks behind me. It was very hard to judge where you were, and but it wasn't.
And you'd
that
made
dramatic.
it at that stage, really.
Well, once I hit Galway, I was fine. I was happy, and it's all good.
Listen, I really, really do hope you stay on dry land for a while, because God knows you deserve the break, as does your lovely partner and your daughter. Anyway, thank you so much for chatting to us on the show today. And of course, to keep up with Damian, make sure to head over to damianbrowne.com.
After the break, what's the beef? We're going to be cooking cannelloni next. See you in 3.
Cannelloni.
Cannelloni. What did I say?
You're very welcome back. It's time for an early lunch now, so let's not mince our words. We're having beef. Joining us with his recipe for beef mince and spinach cannelloni is Dean Diplock from Briefly House Resort. Dean, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good,
I'm
thanks.
so delighted you're in. I have been thinking about this since yesterday, since I saw that you were coming in, because I knew this is right up my street. But this is such a brilliant meal for lunch, for people coming over.
Absolutely. It freezes well as well, so you can make it in advance, make double batch if you want to, cook it off, stick it in the freezer, take it out and reheat it. It doesn't take very long. Great for children as well, as I said. It's easy to eat, so again, for elderly people with teeth issues, it's not an issue at all. It's like a lasagna, but it's better.
I love that.
Right, so
easy to eat. I'm like, yes, it is. Right.
Very easy to eat. So there are a couple of parts to this recipe. So I've done a little bit in advance. Now, obviously, the recipe is up online, but we want to have a tomato sauce. Again, we've made these before, so it's just onion, tomato, a little bit of sugar, salt and pepper and herbs, and we cook it nice and slow when we render it down to it's a nice thick sauce, okay? It needs to be thick. You don't want your cannelloni to be runny, okay? It's very important. The next is our mince. Mince needs to be well browned. It's called the Maillard reaction, where it browns like that. It caramelizes the sugars that are naturally found in red meats. And that's important for flavor. Now, you can add a little beef stock if you want to, or beef cube to add a little bit extra flavor. But it's literally just onion and beef mince, a kilo in there.
Yep.
We then add our garlic. Don't put the garlic in too early because it'll burn.
Okay.
All right, and dried herbs or fresh herbs. I'm using thyme and oregano in this recipe. And we really just cook that in nicely. Now, the important part about this now is that we have to break up that mince. Now, you can use a potato masher, you know, just to break the mince up into little pieces, but I find once you've cooled it down to room temperature, drain it so that the excess oil comes out, then quickly in a food processor, just blitz it a few times to break it up. Don't turn it into dust, but just to break it up so that it's, if I can show you, nice and even. Because when we put in the piping bag, we want it to pipe quite easily.
See what you said about the draining the beef off there?
The oils.
The oils.
If there's naturally found oil, we use about a tablespoon of oil, a little bit of butter in the onion as well. We want to just drain that off so that, again, it's not too watery. So we're looking for the flavour, but not the oil.
Okay, makes sense.
So that's the important part. But again, room temperature is important because we're going to be adding cream cheese to it and we don't want it to all melt.
No.
Okay, so that's part one, part two, and then the third part is our cheese sauce. Now, again, we've made cheese sauces many times on the show, but again, just to show you, easy peasy, you can go down the route of your flour and your roux and the whole story, or just go and buy a packet. Cheese sauce, ready-made.
Dean, I love this. I love this about you. It's like you are the chef extremo. You're so good at what you do. But I love when a top chef like yourself comes in and goes, buy the packet.
Absolutely.
Do yourself the favour.
This is how we cook at home. This is the reality. If you want to go through all the effort of making the white sauce, absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. But this is just, nobody's got time anymore. So let's make it easier. So nice hot boiling milk. I have 500 mils in there. I've just made a bit of the slurry with that, a bit more milk, and then the three sauces. So I've got 2 white sauce and a cheese sauce, because we're going to add extra cheese. We don't want to go crazy now. We're going to add a little bit more cheese, just a little bit.
Dive in, Dean, go mad.
We're going to add a bit of cream, just for that nice oomphness that goes with it.
Is it a double, or what type of cream? Just a normal?
That's just a standard cream, just a straight up cream. So that's catching a bit on the bottom, but we'll fix that. Okay, so in goes our cheese. Right, I have a Gruyere and a cheddar cheese in there.
Oh, wow.
Right, we'll mix that all up and get that going. Right, now while that's just softening up, okay, I'm going to go on to the actual cannelloni itself. So you buy the pasta tubes already.
Yes.
And what we're going to do is we're going to now stuff those with our cream cheese. So 1 tub of cream cheese, just soften that up, bring it to room temperature. And then our spinach, bought spinach, frozen, pre-blanched, chop it up nice and fine, and again squeeze all the water out of it so that we're sticking just, the spinach itself into it rather than the liquid again as we've tried to get it out.
The liquids aren't our friend in this.
No.
Okay.
So, not in the filling, in the filling specifically, but certainly in the sauces.
Of course.
But in salt and pepper and nutmeg.
What's the nutmeg for?
Nutmeg goes very well with the spinach. It just adds a little bit extra dimension to it, really. Okay? And then to that, we're going to add our mince. Okay, I'm not going to use all of this because it's a little over 1 kilo that we prepared. And we mix that in nicely like so.
So you mentioned earlier on, Dean, just in terms of the cannelloni tubes, that they're hard and pre-boiled. You wouldn't use a fresh soft pasta for this because we wanted to keep its shape. Is that correct?
We need to hold its shape, like you would a lasagna sheet. You can make it fresh because it's flat, but you're going to really struggle to get that shape. Unfortunately, it's going to fall apart. It's actually pressed through a specific die to get that shape. Okay, and then in a piping bag. Now, obviously, I've made some already earlier, just for time purposes. We put our mince in with the cream cheese, which is your slidage, as they say, to allow it to move through easily.
Slidage.
Okay. And then we take each of our cannelloni, and fill them up and just layer them layer by layer. You do want to work a little quickly, though, because as you see, it starts cracking. If the camera can see that, it starts cracking because of the moisture. You want to get it done as soon as.
Right.
So we'll just layer those on, just like so. It's very easy with a piping bag. You just work
You're
away.
going to need a vessel, aren't you, to try and just fill them up. So handy to. Could you use, like, if you had a food bag at home, just to tip the end and just.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Just the Ziploc bag. It's very
Ziploc,
simple.
yeah.
If you haven't got
Yeah.
one, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Okay. Set that aside.
Yes.
Again, we want to just top it with a little more of the tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Not too much. Just a bit of moisture.
Oh.
Like so. There we go. And then our cheese sauce over it. Now, don't be shy with your cheese sauce. This is the top part of the whole recipe.
Right, cheese sauce smells incredible.
Aside. And I did keep a little bit of the cheese aside.
Yeah.
Again, this is just to top on top.
Tell me again the cheese that you used there.
Cheese I'm using Gruyere.
Okay.
And a strong, mature cheddar.
Okay.
Lovely flavours out of them. We want flavour. We're not so worried about the stickiness of it. All we really want is a good flavour. Okay, and then I'm going to finish that off just for garnish purposes with a little bit of paprika.
Oh,
If you like it a little bit spicier, you can put some cayenne pepper on if you like.
Are you gonna dish me, or will I dish myself? It's just, it smells so good, Dean.
Not a problem. This goes in the oven, 160 degrees. You can cover it with a bit of tin foil for about half an hour. After that half an hour, open it up and let it go for another half an hour.
Okay.
And then it'll be cooked. Finish it with the grill, just to brown the cheese.
Oh,
and you
Dean.
end up. Now, very important at this point.
Go on.
Take it out and let it rest for a little while.
Yes.
It is hot as lava,
Yes.
first of all, but also it'll just ooze and fall apart. So you want it to kind of set.
Okay.
Like so.
So excited.
You've been excited about this since I came into the studio.
It smells so good.
So
Thank
there
you
you
so
go.
much.
Nice
Wow,
shape
thank you,
to
Chef.
it. Let's see what you think. And again, great way to get vegetables into the diet of the kids.
Yes.
They won't even know it, and it'll be one of their favorites.
Wanna get a bit of
Serve
everything.
that with a nice little salad, little green salad on the side, and some crispy bread, crunchy bread. You can't go wrong.
Oh my God.
Good, good, good.
It's the flavours and the cheese. That cheese is just like.
Absolutely. You must caramelize that cheese a little bit, get it nice and brown. Don't let it burn, but that adds to the flavor. But again, as I said, let it set for a little while because it is very, very hot. You don't want to burn the kids. So let it sit for a little while and then tuck into it. You at least get a decent shape out of it too. Hope you enjoy that.
Jean, this is absolutely gorgeous. Knocked out the park. And as you said, freezes really well.
Yes.
Oh.
So you can make a batch. Do 2 or 3 at a time. Put it in the freezer. It's great, so easy. Take it out, pop it in the oven, keep it with a bit of tin foil at about 120 degrees, 100 degrees. Takes about a half an hour just to reheat again, and then you're good to go. Again, use your thermometer just to make sure that it's reheated, and off you go.
Could you stick any other veg in it?
You could chop up some vegetables, some carrots and things like that, but you've got to find what's going to go into the cannelloni. That's the problem. What can fit in there? You can put it on top, you can put it underneath, no problem, but you're going to struggle to get it in.
Thank you, Dean. As ever, the recipe details are on our website. Dean will serve you up something delicious if you pay him a visit in Briefy House. But up next, are you scared of the dark? If you said no, there's a 40% chance you're lying. But we'll be looking at some of the most common phobias affecting people today in just a couple of moments. You're very welcome back. We're talking phobias now, and whether it's spiders, snakes, dentists, or in some case, the number 4. There's a perfectly good explanation behind every fear.
Joining us now, the author turned phobia expert who has chronicled the strange history behind 99 of the world's weirdest phobias. It's Kate Summerscale. Kate, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Hello.
First question, based on your previous work, this is a bit of a departure. What drew you to the idea of phobias, fears and manias?
Well, usually I write about sort of strange cases from history, but often they are about obsessive conditions, whether people who are obsessed with ghosts or murder or love affairs. And so it came in a way quite naturally to look into these sort of ordinary compulsions that many of us have, which are extreme states of fear and desire, fixations of one sort or another, and to try to trace the historical roots of them.
So, Kate, there's a difference, though, isn't there, between having a phobia of something rather than it being like a mania or just kind of... but there's a differentiation between the two, is there?
Yeah, they're sort of two sides of the same obsessive coin. So a phobia is, simply put, a compulsion to avoid something, and a mania is a compulsion to do something.
Well, in that regards, I must have a phobia of the housework. That's what Debbie will say anyway. You chose 99 to cover in the book. How do you whittle down? Because there is, well, just based on some of the examples we have, what seems to be an endless list of phobias and manias. How do you choose the 99 you want to feature in the book?
Yeah, you're right. It's sort of infinite. Anything can be the object of obsession. I just researched a lot and chose the things that I thought were the most intriguing and compelling stories. And I tried to make sure to get in a range of the strangest compulsions and fixations, but also some of the most familiar ones. And to also try to cover the ground in terms of different interpretations of where these things come from, and also how they can be dealt with, how they can be treated.
Kate, what is the strangest one? I mean, obviously within the 99, but what is this like? I mean, because to everybody you feel like your phobia or mania is the strangest, but what is the strangest one you found?
Well, I particularly was intrigued by kumponophobia, which is the fear of buttons. And not only because it's strange, but also because it's strangely common. I found lots of people, once I started talking about it, knew somebody who had this fear. And it seems so mysterious. It's not an obvious evolutionary fear. It's not kind of logical that we should be scared of buttons. I mean, Steve Jobs was one person who suffered from this phobia, which is supposedly why he always wore those turtleneck sweaters. He didn't like to wear clothes with buttons on them.
Kate, on some level...
It even contributed to the sort of streamlined design of his products.
Yeah.
The idea of not having protuberances or things that can fall off. So I found that fascinating.
So there's a whole list of various random ones. We were talking earlier on, one of my good friends is afraid of cotton wool. That's another one. But this, now bear with me, I'm going to have to read this because this is a big one. And if I don't get it right, well, that's actually part of it. But here we go. Hippopoto monstro Tescaquipophobia. Dig me out of a hole here, Kate. You know the one I'm talking about.
I'm not going to say it either. Yes, that is a phobia, a word that was created in the late 1970s, we think, to describe a fear of long words. So it's a kind of comical construction, and in a way, it's sort of taking the mickey out of phobia constructions at all, these words which just translate a normal word into Greek and then attach phobia at the end as a way of describing ordinary fears. And the hippopoto bit of that word is just a bit of silliness, but it is a very long word, and so it describes the thing which the person is supposedly averse to.
I like that palindrome. The fear of palindromes is actually a palindrome. Like there's a joke in it. It's like, I can't think of the word of it. Actually, I can't pronounce it.
It's like,
but
it's like having S's in the word lisp.
Yeah, exactly. Kate,
yes,
can I
exactly.
ask you?
Yes, ibophobia. That's the fear of palindromes, and of course, it doesn't immediately strike you as a palindrome, but it is one.
It doesn't necessarily look like one. Can I ask you about, so we've loads coming in this morning. So clowns is really common. Clowns is my one, to the point that, like, I couldn't be in the same building. I've been on a motorway and have to pull over and someone has to come and get me because I saw one on the way to a child's party. Is clowns very common, or what does it mean?
Yeah, that one's called coulrophobia, and that was named in the 1980s. And in fact, it only seems to have really taken hold in the 80s. And I think that the tracing the history of it, there was a serial killer in the United States called John Wayne Gacy. He killed 33 young men and boys. And he was pictured in the papers wearing a clown costume. And so this idea of the sinister clown, the predatory clown, took hold, and there were lots of reports all over the States and in Scotland of supposedly people dressed as clowns who were stalking children, and it was like a mass panic. And then Stephen King wrote his book, It, in 1986, a novel about a supernatural evil clown, and that kind of cemented the figure of the wicked clown. So it's quite an interesting phobia because it's got such clear cultural roots. You know, it's to do with events that were reported in the press and a novel that was written that has really got under our skin as a culture and is actually a very common fear now.
Yeah, speaking of under our skin, I can see Suzanne is curling. We'll move on from clowns because I don't think she's loving this bit. When you were researching the book yourself, was there anything in particular that you came across that you thought, that's a particularly unusual one? What one really stood out for you?
Well, I particularly enjoyed the sort of textural phobias, which seemed weird to begin with, but you could actually think your way into the kind of tactile ones, like the one you just mentioned, the fear of cotton wool, which is known as bambacomalophobia, and the fear of clusters of holes, which was identified very recently, about 20 years ago, and named by someone in Ireland in an internet chat room. And these things, it seem nonsensical, but once you start really thinking about it, you can both imagine why the sort of thin squeak of cotton wool is so disturbing. There's something kind of uncanny about it. And why also there are theories about how we're scared of some of these things, like clusters of holes, because we've got a latent aversion, a kind of disgust reflex at things that remind us of infectious disease.
Well,
and
Kate,
holes can be reminiscent.
Kate, thank you so much for joining us this morning. If we haven't lost all our viewers because we've been talking about the things that scare them, and if you want to find out more, of course, you can pick up a copy of Kate Summerscale's book, The Book of Phobias and Manias, at any good bookstore around the country.
We're back after this quick break. Thank you, Kate.
It's been 4 years since Michael Myers vanished without a trace. I was certain that I saw him watching me.
You pretend like you moved on, but you're actually just obsessed with death.
What are you gonna do when Michael comes back for you? Because he is coming.
But this time, something feels different. He's more dangerous.
Let's check in on your morning paper, starting with the Irish Times. They lead with new proposals to ease refugee crisis. The paper reports that people living in direct provision centres who work full-time may be charged rent or a fee under proposals being considered by the government in an attempt to find space for Ukrainian refugees.
AIB hike to spark interest rate surge. That's the front page with the Irish Independent. It reports that AIB has set the ball rolling on what is expected to be a string of mortgage rate rises from Ireland's main banks.
The Examiner leads with Kinahan gang arrests may be abroad. The paper reports that leading members of the Kinahan crime organisation are more likely to be taken down by international policing authorities than face justice in Dublin.
Moving on to the tabloids now, the Daily Mail leads with romance fraud gang launders €64 million in Ireland. Reports that a major Garda investigation has found that more than €64 million has been stolen by an African gang in romance fraud and email scams, which has been laundered through bank accounts in Ireland.
The Mirror leads with Cuckoo. The paper reports that the head of the public body set up to protect tenants' rights has been slammed for stating that renters should pay more to protect their leases.
On the front page of The Sun, a giant of our screens, the paper reports that film and TV legend Robbie Coltrane died yesterday, aged 72, after a lifetime of bringing joy to millions. The gentle giant passed away in his native Scotland yesterday evening.
The Herald leads with Johnny Cash withdrawal. The reports the narco bank laundering network believed to have been used by Johnny Cash Morrissey to clean the Kinahan drug money has had its accounts closed after a series of police raids.
And the Star opens with thank you. It reports that the grief-stricken village of Creeslough has thanked the public for its support, as the public have raised almost €1 million to help rebuild the community.
Yeah, a little something that caught my eye. We were talking about Robbie Coltrane obviously earlier on, and Harry Potter had a series of dolls. They were one of the most collectible dolls. They did like a limited edition, and Mattel do a limited edition Barbie doll.
Okay. Oh, God, you and the Barbies again. How many Barbies have you?
A lot.
How many?
A few. 1 or 2, 3.
100.
Maybe, yeah, give or take. Anyway, what caught my eye about this is that Tina Turner finally has got her music signature doll. So this is a long time coming. There's been loads of talk about it. So it's to mark what's love got to do with it. It's its 40-year anniversary. It's the full outfit and hair that Tina wore.
Oh, my
Okay.
God.
Everybody remain calm.
That's a fine head of hair if ever I saw one.
Is that not the most incredible doll you've ever seen?
That's what I used to do to my Cindy's when I was small. You know, you cut their hair and it'd go like that.
No, it's just poor Cindy didn't have great hair, did she? Those dolls weren't great.
No.
But so listen, she's already sold out. So in this music signature collection, like Elton John, they've done his dolls. I'm pretty sure there's been a Britney doll, even though she's kind of still young, if you get me, in the Barbie world of those signature collection dolls. It was gone on sale the 13th of October. It's fully sold out. I did have a look via Amazon and whatnot, but you just can't find it. It should only be about €80. It's $55, so it should only be about €80, but you can't get it for love nor money. So this will be one of those dolls that collectors will love. Really,
Speaking of collectors, what's your most expensive doll worth?
I like the designer dolls. So like Louis Vuitton did one. There's a Dior one, and they do them every year, like one particular designer. So I think I have a Louis Vuitton one, which is probably, you can't get it now. I have a 1986.
Cha-ching.
Yeah, Peaches and Cream one as well. Which she's
I remember that one.
She's one of the most beautiful dolls ever.
Yeah.
But they do a Christmas doll. So like I would now try and buy the Christmas doll for the kids, so that they don't care.
You say for the kids.
Yeah.
Would you let them play with them?
No, they're not allowed to touch
Not at all. Yeah. Could you imagine the kids
No.
try to touch your Louis Vuitton Barbie doll?
No.
They'd be grounded.
No.
But they'd be worth a few £100, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they are. Like the mass-produced dolls, not so much.
But the
there was
limited
an
edition
Olympic,
ones.
like I have an Olympic doll, but my niece opened her. Like,
I remember you told me that.
I'm still not really up because they're like these signature editions. But if you're into collectors and you're into dolls or comic books or whatever it is, this is huge. But this Tina Turner doll has been in creation for so long. They've talked about it, and it's just such an iconic doll.
Well, like it looks
Doesn't
brilliant.
she look amazing?
It's perfect. Yeah.
Love her.
We've got a few texts in there just about the phobias. We were having a chat, of course, about the book. Glyn says, I agree with Killian. I have a fear of vomiting. And Glyn says, I'm the same. Can't stand it at all.
Yeah.
What about if Debbie was sick?
Well,
she'd be on her own, I'd say. She'd be on her own.
I put on Spotify on the speaker so that I can't hear what's happening in the bathroom.
Thomas says, I don't know why, but I have a major fear of Michael Jackson. He's always terrified me. Fair enough. Yeah. Kira says, my major fear is hair. I hate leg hair and arm hair. It really gives me the ick. Like on everybody, on yourself, on other people.
Is that more ick? It just gives you the ick rather than you're afraid of it. You know, like if you couldn't...
But she said it's a fear.
Touching
Hang on a second, this is another one.
Hairy arm.
Tara says, it's a weird one, but I have a major fear of toast sweat. What? Toast? Don't you put toast down and condensation underneath it?
Oh, yeah,
that's very strange.
It's a bit pukey, actually.
Let's, you're all weird. All of you are absolutely weird. It's absolutely nuts. Yeah, so keep them coming.
As always, plenty of time to get reach us today. You can text us for free. WhatsApp, the number is 089 611 111.
And you can pop us an email, irelandam@virginmedia.ie.
You can find us at Ireland AM VMTV and on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram.
After the break, no soggy bottoms on show here. It's Bake Off champ Giuseppe Dell'Anno.
Very welcome back to the show. Our next guest wowed everyone week after week with his bakes. He even received a handshake from Paul Hollywood in the Bread Week. We all know they don't come along easily.
Winner of Great British Bake Off 2021, Giuseppe Dell'Anno, joins us now to talk about his new cookbook, Giuseppe's Italian Bakes, and of course to give us his thoughts on the latest series. Giuseppe, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, guys, and happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. It's so lovely to see you. First of all, when and why did you apply for the show?
I applied for the show. I think I submitted the application just in time before the deadline. It was towards the end of November 2020. And yes, and I got the call back from the production team just over a week after that. And the selection process, however, lasted a few months. So I was only confirmed as one of the 12 bakers towards the end of March 2021.
And during the selection process, are you being tested on your ability there at all, or is that is it more screen testing, personality testing? How are they finding you?
All of the above, Killian, in reality. They do the screen test, of course. They want to see your bakes, which for me was actually quite a bit of a problem because I'm not I didn't even have an Instagram account back then. I'm too old. I'm not a millennial. So I'm not one of those that takes pictures of whatever they cook or bake. So I didn't have many. And during the first couple of months, I had to bake every day almost to produce a few photos to send to the production team. Which was quite interesting. And they test everything else as well. I mean, I had one live audition as well, only one in my case, because we were still under COVID restrictions back in the day, so it was very difficult to get together. And we had a proper test on the proper benches, the iconic pastel-colored bake-off benches with a producer that effectively whose job was essentially just to annoy you as much as possible. They were there asking you a lot of questions while we were baking, just to see whether you could do two things at once, bake and talk at the same time. I'm not very good at multitasking, so for me that was probably the hardest.
And how did that go? I'd say it was great fun. You probably wanted to throw your baking bowl at them at one point.
Just shut up and let me bake. Well, but the thing is that you realize that it's a TV show after all. So you can be the best baker ever, but if you don't communicate much with the rest of the people watching the show, there is no point in you being on the show. And coincidentally, it was the 5 of us actually at that stage in the selection process, and I was the only one who made it through. So it's a very selective process. Don't ask me how I made it, because I don't know what it is that they've been checking all the way through.
But in fairness, your father was a baker, so you obviously got your talents from him.
Well, I got the passion for baking from him, and I got spoiled by him. So the main reason why I got into baking in the first place is because I missed all the daily treats that he used to bake for us as a family, for his parents, himself. So when I moved out of our family home when I was 18, I started to realize that wasn't standard practice, and that I'd been very lucky all the way through. So yeah, I had to learn to bake just because I was used to have baked goods around me.
And in terms of Italian cuisine, I mean, maybe ignorantly, people would often just think it's pizza, pasta, tomato-based sauce things, but there's your cookbook especially goes into far more things that are Italian-centric. What else can we expect to see other than traditional pizza, pasta stuff?
Killian, that's a very, very good point. I mean, the Italian cuisine is very, very well known abroad, mostly for savory things and for the things that you do for your, Sunday dinner, pizza being one of the iconic ones. But I realized, and that was a bit of a surprise for me, I realized that there isn't much abroad in terms of Italian baking. So the Italian sweets, there are a few quintessentially Italian bakes that are very well known everywhere, like panna cotta, tiramisu, and those are included in the book. But there are a lot more that are not very well known abroad, and some of them are deceptively simple to make. So I thought, this is a good opportunity for me to spread Italian joy abroad, and I didn't want to miss it. And everything in the book is extremely classic, so I didn't invent anything. There is very little of my own creativity that I restrained myself on purpose because I want the recipes to be as authentic as possible. And I had my dad's notes as a source of inspiration. So that was a relatively easy job, I have to say. The only problem there was that I put on 13 kilos testing all the bakes, which wasn't good.
But how did you decide which recipes to include and which ones to leave out? Because a lot of them would be very close to your heart, family recipes.
Absolutely, Elaine. And that was actually probably the hardest part for me because there are only so many recipes you can cram in a book. And I ended up having to take out a few. And I've got so many others that I would like to put somewhere else. Perhaps book number 2 is in good order there. The only criterion that effectively I followed was, what are the ones that I really don't want to do without, that I really like to bake myself in our family environment, and I stuck to those. And if we like them, they're bound to be a winner as well. That's what I'm hoping.
Giuseppe, you talked about your father's notes. I mean, were they detailed notes? Were you able to follow them to a T and kind of nail it every time, or?
I think I've done particularly well on the technical challenges in the bake-off tent when they give you, like, the note is make the cake, and the reason is that I've been trained unwillingly by my dad over the years. Because that's effectively the level of detail I found in his bakes. At times, there were only ingredients, and not even weighted ingredients, along the lines of, for example, for amaretti, you've got to use egg whites. And there isn't an amount of egg whites you put for the amount of almonds. It's just add as much egg white as the almonds take. What does that mean? I had to test them 18 times to get them right. But yeah, it was an interesting process.
Yeah. Which of the bakes are you most proud of throughout the series?
Oh, throughout the series. Oh, there was one in particular that I made for Dessert Week that I'd never, ever done before. Not only as a bake as a whole, but also not even the individual elements. It was called Joconde Imprimé, which I didn't even know how to spell, let alone how to bake. And I had to, learn how to do every single element of it. The Bavarois filling, the Genoa sponge, the decoration, the mirror glaze, all of that in 1 week, because we were under a very strict deadline and schedule to provide the recipes to the production. But I was particularly proud of that, because when the judges finally tasted the final version, they said that you could have been sitting proudly in a 5-star patisserie. And I didn't get a handshake for it. I didn't win Star Baker for it. But for me, it was the biggest success at the end.
You've also appeared on the Italian version of Great Bake Off. As a judge, how was that experience?
That was so interesting. I was called up. Well, obviously, there is an Italian Bake Off Italia series. It's not nowhere near as popular as the UK is in this country, but it's got a very nice following of passionate bakers, passionate Italian bakers, and they've got a tradition on the show in Italy whereby they invite the winner from the previous series to participate into one of the episodes of the following series, which I've tried to get the UK producer to do, but they wouldn't listen. Anyway, the Italian, I'm not bitter, the Italian crew did call me together with the winner from last year's Bake Off Italia, and the two of us played a younger version of Paul and Prue without the blue piercing eyes, obviously. It was great fun. It was really great fun. Being on the other side of the bench is very interesting.
Yeah, there's, I suppose we have to turn to this series that we're watching at the moment, and there's been a lot of controversy around it between Mexican Week and everything else. Like the scrutiny you're all under. I mean, what do you make of this year's batch?
Oh, they are fabulous. I mean, the one thing that the Bake Off crew know how to do is the casting. They can always put together the best balanced group of people, perfectly gender balanced, perfectly regionally balanced, perfectly ethnically balanced. And it's not just that. They are genuinely good, nice people to hang out with. I'm lucky enough that I got to meet a lot of the old bakers and even some of the new ones, a couple of them. And it feels like, we've always known each other. Maybe there is this passion for baking that puts us all together. But the crew, the 12 bakers are always great. I don't know of any exception, really, of anybody that doesn't play nicely along. And I think that's probably one of the main criteria that they've got when they select new people.
Giuseppe, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And we have the book here. I'm looking forward to trying stuff out myself, as long as it's not too difficult. Giuseppe's book, Giuseppe's Italian Bakes, is available now.
But up next, Paul's tripping around Ireland. We'll see how he got on in the beautiful county of Clare. Up the banner.
This time of the year, it could be super busy. Summer is over, you're back into the routine, and things can all get a bit manic sometimes.
Which is why it's so important to take some 5 minutes to yourself. And as a part of Fáilte Ireland's Keep Discovering Autumn campaign, we sent the busy bee Paul Ryder in search of some R&R.
Things haven't been quite the same. There's a haze on the horizon, babe.
There are plenty of amazing places across Ireland where you can embrace the switching off from the business of life. And we've started here in County Clare for the amazing Cliffs of Moher experience.
Nothing really goes to plan.
So, over the last 2 years, people have gotten so into their hiking because we couldn't go to gyms, so we had to take to the mountains. What sort of hikes can people do here at the Cliffs of Moher?
Well, here at the Cliffs, you have the full Cliffs of Moher walk. So it stretches from Doolin all the way down to Hag's Head. We're standing up here by O'Brien's Tower, built in 1835. Wonderful place of history. We do tours up here and we have guides up here every day. So basically O'Brien's Tower was built in 1835 by local landlord Cornelius O'Brien, and throughout his life he just saw great potential here at the Cliffs for tourism. Now, I know it's funny to be using the word tourism for back then, but he would have been the grandfather of tourism here when he built this tower.
You were talking to me earlier on about how the fact that 8,000 people a day are currently coming to the Cliffs of Moher. What has somewhere like this done for tourism in both Clare and the Cliffs of Moher area?
It's especially great for the whole area. You have people staying locally in hotels and family-run B&Bs. It's given the place business. It's adding to sustainable tourism. You know, it's putting more emphasis on Irish culture and heritage because this is what people come to see.
Yeah.
So it's a huge promotion of culture, heritage, tradition, everything like that. There's plenty of other hikes around the Burn. There's Fenor Beach with Aloha Surf School. There's a lovely beach, Lahinch down the road, 15-minute drive from here. Another surf school down there. There's Lahinch Golf Club. There's loads of outdoorsy activities to do. There's rock climbing in the Burn.
Of course, Ciara, we're in Ireland, so we know that weather can change in a flash. If somebody's preparing to come to the Cliffs of Moher experience, what should they do to prepare for the weather?
Well, I'd say always prepare for the worst when you come here to the Cliffs. So you could have a sunny day, but we get rain showers every day here in Ireland, as everyone knows. You can see me here in my rain gear and my wet pants. That's all you need to have fun on a hike.
Now you're in my life. I can't get you off my mind.
So about a 40-minute drive away from the Cliffs of Moher is Flaggy Shore. And nestled within this gorgeous bay is the Flaggy Shore Oyster Experience. Now, I've tasted oysters, but I've never shooked them. Let's see how I get on.
Now, Paul, since it's your first time opening oysters today, I better give you an apron.
I've got an apron
in case
to
you
go.
make a mess.
So, Conor, talk to me about Flaggy Shore Oysters. When did you, because it's been around since the 1960s, when did you take it over?
So myself and my business partner Mark took over Flaggy Shore Oysters back in February.
And what makes Flaggy Oysters so special?
So the Flaggy Shore Oyster is influenced by the minerality in the Burn, the level of oceanic water that comes through Galway Bay. With an oyster, the oyster and the ocean do all the work. You don't feed them, you don't give them any sort of pesticides. They're totally natural, so it's just the perfect conditions in the bay that they come from.
Take us to the process of how you actually clean the oysters and get them ready for suppliers.
Tommy Connolly will take the oysters out of the bay in the morning. We'll have them here early afternoon. We'll put them through our washer. From the washer, they go into purification. So we switch on our UV filter. So once those oysters come out of purification, they go back into the washer. We take them out onto the sorting table. We put them into boxes.
Now, speaking of process, shucking the oysters is next.
Yeah.
Right? Is it dangerous, or is it just you have to be really careful?
It depends on the oyster. There's a few different types of oysters. Some oysters are easier to open than others.
Okay.
The one thing I always tell people...
Is there a beginner oyster that I could take?
These are the beginner oysters. And there's a beginner technique. You kind of twist and lift at the same time. Twist and lift. You'll see there's a bit of a... He's got a hold up here, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a suction on the top of the shell. So you need to just help him let go of that. And then, so now, if you see there, we're going to cut this muscle. There's your oyster.
And there's your oyster. So, Conor, you've had your go. Now I'm going to attempt to show my own one, right?
Perfect.
So can you pick me an easy one? Because I've got the apron on, so I'm safe, but I'm just worried about my hands.
Absolutely. This one's jumping out to me now at the moment as a good oyster.
Okay.
See,
so we've got a little bit of a gap there.
You've got a nice hinge there to work with. Right. So the first question, are you right or left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Right-handed. So you'll hold the knife with your right hand. Now, and then push the knife down towards the table. Down this way. You hear it pop now. There you go. So what you want to do is...
You want to twist.
Sure, so you want to pull the knife right along the top of the oyster, as close to the top of the oyster as you can, so you get the whole thing.
So
and pull it the whole way back now. Pull that open now. There you go. So you disconnect the...
So you disconnect it from
that guy from the shell.
Now we got there in the end.
Yeah, no, not a bad first attempt. We'll make a shucker out of you yet.
I've been called some things in my life. There we go. Let's
Natural
get into
now.
it.
Perfect.
Cheers. If, like me, you're a fan of taking care of yourself, then a wellness getaway is really, really good to reset the body and the mind. I've come here to the Cliffs of Moher retreat, just a short drive from the cliffs themselves, to take in all the activities and to relax, regenerate and reconnect. Michelle, we're here at the Cliffs of Moher retreat, and I have to say, when you walk in this room, you just feel this sense of like complete calm. Can you tell us a little bit about the retreat and what sort of services you offer here?
We offer lots of different things. We offer, they're all focused around a wellness experience, and there are different things people can do. We have yoga and hiking retreats where we take people along the Cliffs of Moher. We have whole nervous system rebalancing retreats, which is all very gentle, lots of meditation, breath work, very relaxing and restorative classes. We have Wim Hof method retreats, which is the ice baths and breathing. Some people might be familiar with that, which are great retreats. And we get a lot of men at those retreats, which is really nice. We're offering an experience. It's a wellness experience, and it's for everyone's body. Also, connection to nature. I think that's
and you can't
a huge
but,
part of it.
Like, you can't but look outside these windows and kind of just see the nature. And you're very lucky the sun is here now. It wasn't like this 20 minutes ago, but sure, isn't that the Irish weather? Lastly, why is it so important, do you think, in your industry, to, like, in your knowledge, to just switch off and reset?
I think we're busier than ever. We seem to be bombarded, social media, everything's busy. And when we're busy, we can't really listen. You know, we're disconnected to our own innate wisdom of what's needed for our own bodies, our own minds, our own emotions. But taking that time out gives us that chance to listen. So this pose is about letting go. So it's not about being more of anything, it's just about letting your body completely relax. So take a deep breath in through your nose. And as you exhale, allow every single one of your cells to just melt against the support. Relax your jaw and just exhale. Let your body completely yield.
So I've had a great time in Clare, and as you can see, there's so much to see and do. So if you're looking to book something this autumn, why don't you choose Ireland and keep discovering? Now it's my time to relax.
Feeling very relaxed after this. How does he get the gig where he's in a hot tub on a Saturday morning and I'm in a studio? Up next, there is a masterclass in picking your next winter coat. See you after this quick break.
If you're feeling a chill in the air this Saturday morning, it might be time to turn your attention to winter dressing. Stylist Emily O'Donnell has stayed with us and we're focusing on winter coats. Welcome back, Emily.
Thank you,
well, you
Susanna.
wowed us in the last hour. And I have a funny feeling you're saving maybe the best for last, right?
That's lovely to hear. We are rocking some winter coats here today. In the first half, as you said, we had a look at the trench coat, we had a look at the puffer coat, and we had a look at a wrap coat. But this time we are taking things up a notch, making things a little bit more dressy. A coat, I suppose, is such a staple item, and it's something people spend a lot of money on. And with rising energy costs, as we said earlier, you might be wearing your coat inside and outside this season. So Natalia is opening us up here with this gorgeous faux fur coat from lipstick.ie. Now, it has to be said, for anybody watching, this is faux fur. So everybody wants the look of a fur coat, but we want to be, I suppose, ethical and sustainable here. So this is a beautiful, soft fur. This feels so luxurious. I know people have started to consider their winter wardrobe, their Christmas wardrobe, and the beautiful tone of this coat is just absolutely gorgeous on Natalia. Now, if this is the coat for you and you're not a fan of something as bright, it comes in black as well. Lipstick, of course, have branches nationwide as well as their online store, lipstick.ie, and their head buyer, Louise, is in the Nook Grove store, so if you have any questions, she is on hand to help you out. And just in terms of styling, I kept it quite simple with the kind of tonal look that we're seeing here. So we have a nice bag and belt, I suppose, accessorizing just quite simply. These are really good price points. They come in lots of different colors. The bag is just a lovely tribute to, I suppose, what Celine are doing, but at a fraction of the cost. Lipstick have incredible accessories in their autumn-winter edit, and the Obi belt is coming in at $9.99, so a lovely way to update maybe something you have at home. A nice present. We're, I suppose, conscious that people are watching their pennies this year, but what I love about this dress is it actually has an elastic waist underneath and styled with some great wedge boots. This look will take you anywhere to an occasion, and all of the pieces you'll wear again as well, and that's kind of what we want to showcase here today. The dress comes in black and white, so if you did want to do the faux fur in the black with the black and white dress, and just to say as well that it goes up to a size 18, a really generous 18, so everybody's catered for here today. Lipstick are very inclusive on their sizing.
I love that you said about the coat, because it is a magnificent colour. Natalia looks like a housewife, and I think she looks she literally could be in Beverly Hills and has every look of it.
And it looks super expensive.
Yeah, it does. It's really rich looking.
Looked at the really high-end ones, and it looks so like them. I just think it's stunning.
And for the money involved, though, if you did want to buy that colour, if you want to try it year on year out, the black is perfect.
That's it. Get the black, and you'll have these pieces in the wardrobe forever. These investment coats that we're showcasing here today.
This is so elegant, Emily.
Isn't it beautiful? This is from newmood.ie, and as I mentioned earlier, Patsy and Michelle have won an award for their business Best Boutique, which is no mean feat, having started their business during the pandemic. They're based in Wexford, and what I love about this coat is this is kind of a wrap cape style coat. It's universally flattering, and the reason why people go for coats like this is because they have something dressy underneath, and you can't wear a tailored coat over that because you're going to crease your outfit, and it just doesn't look as elegant as a coat like this. Of course, the Wexford Opera Festival is coming up soon, so they will be expecting lots of visitors to their store, and I just think this coat is stunning. This is a classic. You could also style it up really nicely casually, but for today I've gone with this gorgeous printed dress. This is a shirt dress, and I think it's exactly like what Peter Pilotta are doing. New Mood stock a great range of international and homegrown talent in their store. It's like a mini department store. They've something for all occasions, but this would be gorgeous over Christmas. Again, you could take it through to spring, summer, and it's just a very flattering dress. It has the adjustable belt at the waist, and the coat is adjustable. So women like something that's not too restrictive. We all bloat on certain days. Of course. We have our days we want to be kind of wearing looser clothes. We want to enjoy our Christmas dinner, and Hannah just looks absolutely stunning in this. Again, Patsy and Michelle are in the shop in New Mood if you have any questions, or you can shop online. And I added a great pair of platform boots there from Lipstick. Platforms are back, and Hannah has told me these are super comfortable. They're kind of spongy on the inside and just very chic. I think she looks like she's just
They don't look too heavy with the dress either, though,
Sure,
Emily.
they don't.
Like, because with a dress like that, sometimes a boot can actually look really heavy, but they don't. And then lovely light accessories there with the bracelet there as well.
Yes, these are from Hallquist. These are an exclusive brand that New Mood stock. They have a gorgeous range of jewellery in, and if you're looking for the perfect gift, I think jewellery is a really nice place to start. Lovely. And they just have some really, really unique pieces, but just the whole look put together. You're going to wear these pieces again again, and I just think Hannah just looks like she's
a cream coat is a
off.
beautiful piece to have, and I mean, they terrify me just in general because I'm terrible at keeping them clean, but they are such an elegant.
They're so chic, and they look so expensive. You just look like you're, you know, after stepping out of somewhere very nice.
Speaking of showstoppers, Emily.
Yes, so we are finishing out with the Teddy coat here today. And this coat, I suppose, originated on the Max Mara runways. This is from Elme.ie. Elme, of course, based in Dundalk. And this is the most sumptuous, soft Teddy coat. Ursula loves this. We were all petting it backstage. It's just a really nice way to do the trend. It looks, again, as we were saying, very chic, very expensive. These are the type of coats you're going to have in the wardrobe for years. And you can just be dressed with a coat. A coat doesn't have to be, you know, kind of just complementing an outfit. The coat is the outfit now, and that's what we're seeing more and more with the big designers. You wear your good coat and you are good to go anywhere. And certainly at this time of year, people are cold. We're conscious of all the colds and flus. We want to look well. In terms of styling with this, I couldn't resist this gorgeous Chanel-inspired dress. Isn't it gorgeous?
The colours are beautiful.
Beautiful colours, universally flattering. Laura in Elme has a great eye. She picks out some really nice things, and Ursula's going to show us a little styling hack now. So this belt is actually sold separately from the dress. It's priced at €15. So if you want to take your dress from day to night, you can just elevate it with a studded belt and you are good to go out on the town. And I just think it's a gorgeous look. Again, we've gone for the kind of, you know, plain black boots that just complement every look.
Perfect.
And as I mentioned earlier, Laura in Elme does have the private room in the shop. It's a styling suite, so if you want to go in and not be around other people and get a little bit of personal styling service, you can do so.
You did it again, knocked it out of the park. A little higher end in terms of price for that coat, but season in, season out, it'll absolutely
transform. That's it. They're investment pieces, and these will stay in your wardrobe forever.
Emily, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Earlier, we whipped up some beef cannelloni in the kitchen. Here's how we did it.
Combine the onion, mince, herbs, cream cheese and spinach in a bowl, then fill each pasta pipe with the mixture. Spread a layer of tomato sauce and layer the cheese sauce across your baking dish, then lay the pasta tubes on top. Finish with paprika and bake in the preheated oven until golden brown. Remove from the oven, allow to cool slightly, and then serve with a salad and crusty bread. It looks lovely. Coming up tomorrow, they were one of the biggest bands of the 90s. Counting Crows' Adam Duritz tells us about 30 years of Mr. Jones.
And we're taking a trip back to 2015 to the historic marriage referendum, which is setting the scene for the new Irish play based on the book by Charlie Bird.
We've got pumpkin arancini on the menu and looks for the office over the catwalk.
Join us for all of that, plus the news, the sport and the weather you're waking up to. We're back tomorrow morning from 9. Couple of texts coming in, Cillian.
Yeah, so there was one tweet I wanted to touch on. This morning we spoke with Fraser Holden, who after being diagnosed with motor neuron disease has taken that diagnosis and made it into something as positive as he possibly could. And it's the art exhibition happening next week and everything else. But this tweet came in from... Where is it now? Sandra, was it?
Sandra,
saying,
yeah.
I'm always very wary of watching interviews with fellow MND sufferers, but after this, I feel very inadequate. Lol, she says. It is true about the 10% of kindness every day. It blows me away, the support, and the kindness is unbelievable. His story is incredible. His attitude towards it is inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, glad that Sandra had a positive experience watching
So
this
he was
morning.
absolutely brilliant. And you're not on your own about the vomiting, so you're okay with that. It's a phobia. It's okay. It's a safe space.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. We'll watch something later
talk about the phobias too much. It'll be grand.
And fear flying in there as well. So loads coming up on tomorrow's show. We're looking forward to that one, as always.
Thanks, Minnie, for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow from 9.
See you later. Have a lovely Sunday. Enjoy it, whatever you get up to. Don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, thanks a lot.